Welcome to Legacy Cast, your source for hearing from top influencers, industry experts, and successful business owners who are telling their unique story about life, values, goals, business strategies, and the various causes they are so passionate about. Future generations will come to be impacted by what is happening today, whether positive or negative, and our mission is to focus on what is going to affect change for the better. Hosted each weekday by James Snow, a former U.S. Army combat medic, now founder and principal advisor of James Advisors Group, a full-service financial planning firm in North Texas. This is Legacy Cast. Welcome, Legacy Cast listeners. This is your host, James Snow, coming to you from North Texas. And I have with me today a wonderful guest, Marc Mawhinney, and he's one of our neighbors just to the north here. He's in the northeast direction of us in the Canadian region, but he's also a coach, a business coach. So, you know, that's certainly a thing that we love to talk to guys in that career, because that's very beneficial and applicable to so many people, especially as business owners. You know, we need to have good information, good training, and good mentors. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Marc to the program. Welcome, my friend.
Hi, James. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. Pleasure and an honor to have you on here. And if you can kind of give us just a little short synopsis there of kind of what makes your coaching applicable and unique.
Sure. So in a nutshell, what I do is I help coaches get more clients without paid advertising. That's my elevator pitch. But
Okay.
That being said, I've had a life. I like to think of myself as young. I just turned 40 in the summer, but I've been in business one way or another since I was 21 years old, right out of university. So I had a life in real estate for about a decade throughout my 20s, and now I've been coaching online for about 5 years. So I'm really big on entrepreneurship, and I think entrepreneurs don't get enough credit nowadays, and that's why I like what you're doing with the legacy direction of it, but also with veterans, because of course I think veterans entrepreneurship's a good fit for veterans, everything that they've done, and I'd like to see more of them transition into that when they get back.
Yeah, with veterans, excuse me. What I've kind of discovered that's sort of interesting with us is, we tend to work better as sort of running our own show. I myself, I'm a horrible employee because I don't like following other people's directions. So that entrepreneurship, for myself is certainly something that is appropriate, and a lot of my brothers and sisters that have served, I kind of hear that same thing is. They're really good at doing their own thing and not necessarily, following someone else's direction, but they want to chart their own course. And so, entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I'm the same way as you.
Very fitting.
Yeah. I'm unemployable. I say I'm proudly unemployable. It's not in my DNA, and not to knock people who are employed, because there's plenty of people who are happy doing, in a corporate or 9-to-5 type thing. It's just not for me. And that's a great thing living in, the 2018, 2019 is a couple clicks of the keyboard. You can connect with anyone in the world. So you're not restricted to your local sandbox.
Absolutely. Now, you were telling me just before we came on the program, you also, with your coaching, you do that through social media, right? Having a Facebook group.
Yes.
That you do that through.
Yeah. The Facebook groups is one of my big revenue drivers. That and my email list, so email marketing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Facebook group's got about 15,000 coaches in it, and that's where a lot of my clients come from, but also connections, relationships are from that group.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty good sized group there that you have going.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's called the Coaching Jungle. If anyone wants to check it out, if you go to coachingjungle.com, that will forward you over there. You'll be met by a cartoon Marc wearing Tarzan garb, swinging across a banner. So give you a warning, you're going to see Marc in skimpy clothes.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. So when you hear the term legacy, obviously everyone kind of has a little bit different slant on what pops in their mind. Some people, they're doing education stuff, or maybe they've created some widget that solved a problem. When you hear the term legacy, though, what's the first thing that pops in your mind, Mark?
It's funny. I was chatting with someone the other day about this, and they're asking why I do what I do and stuff. And I said one of the cool things with being in the coaching world, personal development, especially if you're doing things like, say, a podcast or writing a book, people could be listening to or reading that content 100 years down the road. So right now I've got the greats like Napoleon Hill and Dale Carnegie, their books on my shelf. I am constantly going back to them. So I think that's a powerful way to look at it. Is, if you're doing business, say in 2019, you could be influencing someone in the year 2119. You just don't know. Right. It's a way to be immortal in a lot of ways. You're going to live on through the years. So that's one of the things I think of with legacies. Your impact goes further than what's going on right now. It extends to many years down the road.
Yep, and I like that you were looking at it kind of in that term. That's obviously sort of how I look at things as well. I'm also a person of faith, and so I look at things. Probably 3 to 7 generations is kind of the scope that I try to look at things, and obviously with my clients I try to help them look at the things that way as well, because you're building not only a business but maybe building a financial legacy, and you want to do something that your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, they're going to know what you did by the effects that they're receiving later, and that also has impact on society. Because the more that you're building something and making it better than you found it, then your progeny can also do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing is, someone listening to this podcast now could go on to become the next big thing in whatever industry they're in or whatever business. So I always say to people, I want to be the Sam Phillips of the coaching world. And for anyone who doesn't know, Sam Phillips owned a record studio called Sun Records in Memphis, Tennessee. And back in the early 50s, there was a gawky, awkward looking kid with a strange name and acne and just not who you'd picture becoming a big star, popped into Sam Phillips' studio and asked to cut a song for his mother for her birthday. And with a name like Elvis, who would have thought that kid would ever amount to anything? Sam Phillips discovered Elvis, and because he was willing to give him a chance. And had Sam Phillips not given Elvis a chance, he still could have hit it big. Who knows? But you never know. So anything that you're doing nowadays, putting a business out in the world, you're helping people, you could be inspiring the next Elvis in your world. So you're creating a bunch of Elvi. Is a plural, I guess. Elvi.
Yeah, and when I'm talking to people, that kind of is in the realm of what I refer to, not necessarily the Elvis scenario, but that everything that we do is going to make an impact, either positive or negative. And so you're creating a legacy, either a good one or a bad one, whether you realize it or not. And so to me, it's very important that we're deliberate in what we're doing and very intentional. Which kind of leads me over to the next thing I was going to ask you is how important you think it is that people do take a deliberate thought in what they're doing today that's going to be making a difference tomorrow.
Well, I mean, deliberate is good because you want to attack things and be determined and all that stuff. I always tell people not to overthink things. So I think some people are. Well, I mentioned Napoleon Hill, who wrote the classic Think and Grow Rich. A lot of people in the personal development or coaching world want to write the next Think and Grow Rich. You want to be the next Napoleon Hill, but they end up overthinking it. So that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. Think and Grow Rich has sold probably more books other than the Bible and a handful of other ones. That's a big goal to set. You freak yourself out if you think I want to be the next Napoleon Hill. So don't overthink things. It's good to be deliberate. It's good to be committed, but you have to get out there, take action. You got to throw a lot of spaghetti at the wall. That's one thing I did when I started as a coach. Not literally, figuratively speaking, I threw a lot of spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick. And then you course correct if you find it's not working the best. And it's through that trial and error that you determine what works.
Sure. And that is actually some smart tip there that you're mentioning as far as figure out what works for you, and then narrow down, niche down into that thing, because so many of us when we start our business, it's like I want to save the world. Well, the world's a really big place.
Yes.
If you can just start with 1 or 2 people first, and narrow down, niche down, and find that very tight market, then it can get bigger because the word of mouth spreads, and then that impact does does affect more, and you can actually change the world by starting with one person at a time.
Yeah. And I'm not comparing myself to Napoleon Hill, obviously, but if you look at me, I'm in a smallish Canadian city here on the East Coast, Moncton, New Brunswick. I don't do any local business. Everything I do is online. With most of my clients are in the U.S. or I have some that are overseas, and people following me are from all over. So here's this Canadian kid with, I've been told I have an accent. Nobody thinks I have an accent, right? But when I talk to some Texans or people from the southern states, they're like, "Oh, look, listen to your accent." But I'm this Canadian who had no following online when I started my coaching business, and just through being consistent and doing certain things and sticking with it, I've done things like build a large community with the Facebook group and other things like that. I've been speaking at events and doing things I wouldn't have imagined when I got started. I just got started, and I said, we're going to see what happens here. So that we're living in the best time to do business. I think people in the 50s, 60s, 70s, probably even the 80s, 90s would have done anything to be doing business now, where you can connect with anyone for free. We don't even have to pay much for that benefit to do that. So we're living in a great time.
No, we are for sure. Now, how do your views on legacy affect what you do, say on the business level, and what you're doing with your business?
Well, one of the things that really drives me, I have a 10-year-old son. So anyone who has kids knows that's the best motivation you can have as an entrepreneur. Sure. So I look at a lot of things through that prism with my son and thinking down the road. Now, there could be a time he's only 10. He hasn't decided what he's going to do in his life. Maybe he wants to get into this type of business. He wants to take the torch and carry it on when I'm older and too old to do it. I don't know. But for me, I look at my son as being when I think of legacy, I think of him as well with it. So you're not building something just for yourself. You're building it for your family, your loved ones, the people that you're going to help as well. You can help a lot of people. There's 7.5 billion people in the world. If you impact even a fraction of a percent, you're doing a whole lot of good. You're never going to impact 7.5 billion people, but you can impact a lot.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, as a CEO and entrepreneur, are there maybe a few things that, as far as running your business, that maybe keep you up at night, that you think about, things that sort of are on the edge of your mind most of the time?
It's gotten better because I'm in my 5th year now for coaching, but the first couple of years I was doing everything myself. I was the chief cook and bottle washer. So my podcast, which is now at a weekly frequency, and I've released almost 600 episodes, but the first 300 episodes of Natural Born Coaches was a daily show. And I was editing it myself, and I hate editing podcasts. I don't know if you edit your show or not.
Right.
I'll try not to curse or sneeze or do anything that requires you to edit more than you have to, James. But I was doing everything by myself in those first couple of years. Now, since then, I've built a team. I have a twin brother. He has a podcast editing business, so he handles my podcast stuff. I have a team of VAs that handle stuff like the Facebook group admin and so on. So I don't know. I sleep very well at night, to be honest, but it wasn't like that in the early stages. The first couple of years, it's a blur. Just go to get this business going and stuff. And now I work a lot, but I also try to have a little bit of balance in there because I don't want to burn out with it. And I can honestly say I haven't lost a night's sleep in many years. Now, I went through a business closure in real estate back in 2009. I had 100 agents and employees, had a couple office spaces, really messy business closure. I had some sleepless nights then. So I don't want to pretend I've never had a sleepless night as an entrepreneur. But since I've been coaching, I haven't had any sleepless nights.
Oh, excellent. Now, do you believe it's important that people create business plans and financial plans for their business, or do you think it's kind of okay for people to sort of skate by, without those things?
In my experience, most business plans are probably no longer. They don't fit what you thought you're going to do in about 2 weeks. They're obsolete. So while I'm a fan of planning to a certain extent, I wouldn't go crazy. I'm finding a lot of entrepreneurs want to have everything worked out perfectly. They want to have all the fancy plans, and they want to be doing all this market research. And I think it's a convenient excuse not